Christina, when Danielle mentioned the increase movement, what does that mean?
So I was 43 weeks pregnant and we were waiting for labor to start. And if you go watch my story, I'll give you more detail into how the midwife failed me with that, because I'd never, ever gone into labor on my own. Alexa was my third child. She wasn't my first. She was my third. And I'd never gone into labor on my own before. And she kept telling me, oh, we'll just wait for this to happen. Your body's normal. It knows what it's doing. And I never went into labor. And basically what happened is when my placenta was failing, she was being asphyxiated and lack of oxygen. And the night before she died, probably right before she died, honestly, I don't know how long she had died prior to me getting to the actual hospital and confirming her death. You can watch my story. I think that's all in part 1, but when she was asphyxiating, she just went crazy. Like I had these increased strong fetal movements where my stomach was literally like, and I was severely obese then. So that wasn't like a normal thing for me to see that kind of movement because I had a lot of body fat. And my husband was like, wow, she's going crazy. And I knew it wasn't labor. And then the next morning she was gone.
So it was just like the day before that she was.
It was the night before. It was at midnight. It was on June 9th. She went crazy. And then on June 10th is when I went to the hospital and she was confirmed gone.
In my labor, where now mine wasn't from placenta failure. It was because my son was crushing his umbilical cord. And again, not too many details and that's why I haven't shared my full story on Danielle's channel as I have pending litigation. But there was an event. They also believe for the same reasons my son died about 2 hours before my midwives transferred me. And my medical notes get really weird right around the 2-hour mark before I was transferred. And I remember watching the sun because I was in the birth room and there was windows on 2 sides of the room. And then the room on the outside had a window on the opposite side of the building. So throughout the day, I was kind of like keeping track of what time it was based off of the sunlight coming through the windows. And this was right at dusk when the sky is kind of like that milky gray blue. So it was like 5:30 at night, 2 hours before I got transferred to the hospital. And I'm in the birth pool and I'm floating there and they didn't want me pushing. And all of a sudden my son started freaking out. And I remember saying to them, it feels like he's trying to rip open my abdomen. Because it felt like he was no longer trying to come out vaginally. It felt like he was trying to come out up top. And they blatantly ignored it. And I don't recall my son moving again while I was in labor. And that was one of the situations that happened because so much movement and the fact that I told them about a shocking increase in movement. It's one of the things that it's like medical professionals should know because that is so common of a symptom of a dying baby. That's why I look up kick counts on social media. There's a video on this channel where one of the people who's on it regularly talks about the importance of counting the kicks. And kick counts, it's not just about did your baby stop moving? It's also about is your baby moving more? Because your baby should have a pattern. There's a window of acceptability based on your baby and your body and your placenta and all of that stuff. And movements below or above range are a sign, get to the hospital immediately. Don't relax. Don't change your behaviors. Don't drink an ice cold glass of juice. That is, you get to the hospital, you get strapped up to a monitor, you tell the doctors, and if they're not willing to check your baby, you tell them you want it on your records that they're not willing to check your baby. Because that's how often babies die from that.
We didn't know either. And I was a birth doula. Like, I was so immersed in this culture, you have no idea. And I didn't know. I didn't know that that's what was happening. And it was when I went to nursing school that I learned about placental aging and what happens and how the placenta has a timeline. And I was sitting in my OB lecture, and this is all in my story. So I can still see myself in the classroom like right now, and I can feel those feelings of like my professor talking about placental failure and what happens when the placenta ages. And I just wanted to run out of there. She allowed Alexa to die. Like, and then I still sat on that for a long time and didn't tell anybody because the shame and the guilt but like he allowed her to die. I was 43 weeks. Placentas have a timeline. Why didn't anybody tell me this? How come I didn't know this as a birth doula? Because it's not in my scope of practice, but you think you know everything when you're a birth doula.
Yeah.
But she should have known that, right? Like I'm so immersed in mother baby. Like I was a lactation consultant. I did La Leche League. I was a birth doula. Like, I know for me, it was placenta failure and she was asphyxiating. And I'm sure that my placenta was full of infarcts, full of calcified infarcts. And
I think there could be several reasons for it, but if the baby is stressed and either the movement is decreased or increased because of the stress, something is happening with their oxygen supply. So if your placenta's aging, your placenta's abrupting, if the cord's being pinched, these things cause the baby not to get enough oxygen, which causes the baby to stress. In my case, my baby's heart rate was over 180 for hours. That's not normal. And her, basically a baby's heart will just give out, but it was from the stress of what was going on. And so it's just like the babies have reactions that medical professionals know. Baby's heart rate shouldn't be dipping down to 90. Baby's heart rate shouldn't be over 170. Babies shouldn't be, having drastic increases or decreases in movement in the last weeks of pregnancy. There's just certain things that medical professionals know that midwives seem to be completely oblivious about. And us as parents, they don't tell you that. They just say, kick count. They don't say, hey, by the way, because you're supposed to be followed with a doctor very closely at the end of your pregnancy. And they figure your doctor will tell you that. But,
and midwives call it a variation of normal.
And my midwife told me it was normal for babies to slow down at the end because there wasn't room. That is not true. Babies' movements do not.
Oh yeah, they tell you that all the time. And I thought,
absolutely
she was
ludicrously untrue. Like it's untrue. Why would you? It's not even like leaving out a fact. You're literally lying. The baby should not be moving less at the end.